Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Review Saturday Conversation Show, an interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, content creators, and filmmakers about their work and love of film. Today's guest is Michael Leavy, filmmaker, actor, and founder of Fuzz on the Lens Productions, who has made his mark in the world of indie horror through his work in the Terrifier film franchise and his latest directorial effort, Stream, which is available now on streaming in digital for everyone to watch. And I just want to say, Michael, I thank you so very much for your time today. We are close to Christmas. I'm going to treat this as my own personal little Christmas gift here because I've been watching your stuff for a while now with your both your work producer and I watch stream as well. Congratulations on that. You're doing really well there. And yeah, man, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on with you, and thank you for being a fan. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for giving me a platform here to talk a little bit about what we've been up to and about my work. It's really an honor, and well, like I could say, I'm excited to get to it.
I want to go way back here, Michael. From what I understand, filmmaking is something that you was just done when even when you were a little kid. You used to take your mum's camcorder, learn to shoot your own films, edits like a real early age. How early age are we talking about here?
I mean, it's really as far back as I could remember. It really was around 4 or 5 years old that I could remember, being very interested in filmmaking, taking my mom's camera. It was probably around 6 or 7 where I started shooting my own narrative kind of stuff.
Hmm.
You hear my son in the background there, I think. It was something that was always innate in me and something that was always something I was interested in, and I used to take the camera, used to film with my siblings and used to film with neighborhood kids and just trying anything, short little films, remakes of other movies that we liked, our own stuff. So it was, a real passion of mine early on.
Where did the love of cinema come from such a young age? Did you watch a lot of movies when you were younger, or is that something you were exposed to at an early time? Do you even remember your first movie experience, whether it be in a theater or maybe in that time will be in VHS? Where does that spark happens?
I can remember watching things like Dick Van Dyke for sure.
Hmm.
It's a big
Hmm.
was a big influence of mine growing up. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Mary Poppins. That was kind of, I guess, the start. A lot of musical stuff I used to watch and used to mimic
Hmm.
um, at a very early age. Also, I guess as I got more into horror, for me, it was Are You Afraid of the Darks and Goosebumps and stuff like that in the early 90s. Um, it was really a wide variety of things. It wasn't one specific genre. Obviously I'm doing a lot in horror now. It became a love, but I also love comedy. I love really just anything that has to do with the entertainment world. But it was some of those early on fantasy stuff too. I used to watch Fairy Tale Theater, the Shelley Duvall
Right.
series that was around. That was a big thing, and I think that's also kind of molded me into liking some of the horror, comedy, morality tale stuff.
Speaking of Dick Van Dyke, how good is he? He's still going on, right? Did you see that Coldplay film clip that he did? That was
Course, I
crazy.
got an alert the moment it came out. That is so awesome. I mean, he's so charming in it, and you can't help but smile anytime you hear him or see him. And that Coldplay video was freaking awesome, and
It was.
it's nice that they did that extended thing, and you got to see his home, his family, and 99.
Yeah.
I'm pulling when he makes the 100. I'd love to work with him, but who knows if that's ever going to happen. But just to know that he's still bringing joy to a lot of people is really cool.
I recently reviewed Clint Eastwood's new film, Juror Number Two, and I was doing some research on him because he's like 98 now or stuff like that. He's way up there as well. And supposedly, something that he said to people that he knows is that when it comes to his age, like the fountain of youth kind of thing, like still working, whatever, is that he said to people, it's like whenever I hear the old man knocking, I never let him in. That's kind of like his mentality kind of thing. And I was
I
like, oh
love
wow, that's something else. I think Dick Van Dyke has got that for sure, absolutely, because he's still very spry. So he's God
That's
bless
what
him.
it
I
is.
think
I
he's
think he has a
great.
book
Yeah.
too that he did that was like always keep moving, always keep active, and I really believe that's got to be part of the secret. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that I know that were very spry and then retired or just stopped doing
Mm.
what they love, and then all of a sudden a year or two later they just they pass away or their health declines. And so I think that is a big thing, and obviously stress is a huge thing. So if you could just try to laugh, and keep working and keep your mind sharp, I think that might be the fountain of youth, the secret to long life.
You're the second person I've talked to this year from Staten Island. The other person was Jennifer Esposito, the actor and director. She did that film Fresh Kills that came out earlier this year, based on her life in Staten Island. The way she describes like her upbringing there was like much more like very rough and tumble and such. Like it was a very kind of rough place. What's Staten Island like for you, experience wise? Is it I don't know. Sometimes I hear about it, or sometimes I don't. It doesn't come up a lot in movies as well. How would you describe growing up in Staten Island versus being there now?
Yeah, for me, it was not as tough. I guess I was fortunate. It was very suburbia, very calm, like, compared to the city. Obviously, Staten Island is a part of New York City, and I
Mm,
think it's the most like middle America than, obviously the rest of the city. Like you have your hustle, your bustle, but it's not as hectic, at least, how I grew up in Staten Island. You know what I mean? Like you were able to raise a family. You were able to go outside, play in the neighborhoods. It was very safe. It's obviously changing now as more and more people come, and just things become, obviously things grow and change and population grows. So I think that kind of changes things. It's not the same as it used to be. It's a little more congested than it
mm,
once was. But again, it's still a place that I had found a lot of inspiration, because Staten Island can be anywhere in the world because it's very diverse, and the island itself has like 500,000 people that are here. That's bigger than some cities. And it's one part of the island could look like New York City, very, very, urban. Another part of the island could look like, the 1500s, the 1600s. They have these old colonial looking homes. You could look like New Jersey or, Kansas. Like there's so many different spots of the island that I always call it a movie backlot.
mm.
And I think that also plays into whatever part of the island you grew up in, is the experience that you kind of had. If you were maybe more of the North Shore of the island, you were more of that urban kind of, grinded out, rough and tough, kind of that Brooklyn, Queens, New York kind of vibe. If you were more South Shore, maybe you were more of that like, Tennessee kind of vibe, that kind of southern middle of the country kind of vibe. So it's definitely a very diverse place. I love it. I think we get a bad rep sometimes from a
Mm.
lot of people that aren't from here, but I'm very proud of it, and I try to bring business here as much as I can personally, because I just think it's a great community.
Um, you just said before it's kind of like a backlot in a certain movie backlot. Are you finding that more productions are going to Staten Island? So just say, fees and licenses in New York, it might be very hard, or New Jersey, what have you. Do you find that Staten Island is being used as a good alternative in regards to that?
It is. It is for a few reasons. One is New York in general for film has a really good tax incentive. So that already is a really good base. So because Staten Island is a part of the city, a part of New York, we get a really good tax incentive to shoot here. But Staten Island, on the other hand, has something that none of the rest of the city has, besides the locations kind of options that I mentioned, is they have parking. You know,
Mm,
it's whereas very tough to park in Brooklyn, it's very tough to park in the city, very expensive. New York has a lot more land, a lot more space that you're able to get those big equipment trucks in. The only downfall with Staten Island is everybody who lives in the city, you hear Staten Island, they think it's Guam. They think it's in the
right.
middle of nowhere. But it's really, it's not, you can get to Staten Island on a good day, no traffic, half hour, 45 minutes. On a bad day, yeah, it could be an hour and a half to 2 hours,
Mm,
depending on when you leave. But that's it. That's, anywhere, that's anything. But I think just for what the island has to offer, we shot a lot of Terrifier on Staten Island. We shot Son of
mm,
Stream on Staten Island. There's so many different really unique locations because it's a very old island, and they have, like I said, they have a place called Richmond Town that is from the Revolutionary War, and they have old buildings and homes and like really cool structures that you literally feel like you're walking on a backlot, and you can shoot, really really cool projects there that are um, period pieces. And then you have obviously your more city like looking stuff, or your more apartment building looking stuff, or you want your homes. There's a place called Toad Hill that a lot of the old mob bosses used to live on, and they're
Mm.
huge $1 million homes that, like, if you want to, that can compete with, kind of like Hollywood in the hills. So you have that kind of element to Staten Island as well. So there's really a lot of different variety in what you can shoot and what you can showcase here.
How early does Fuzz and the Lens Productions come into your life? Because I know you've done a lot of short films. Is the production company set before the shorts, or the shorts come before Fuzz and the Lens? How does that kind of work out timeline wise?
It was so again, it was the short films, and the filming was before Fuzz and the Lens was actually named Fuzz and the Lens. Obviously, like I said, started shooting with my brother Jason and a lot of my other siblings and neighborhood kids at a really young age. And we weren't really thinking of production company. We were just thinking of the content, the stuff we're shooting, the stories, and just kind of figuring it out. We used to call ourselves Leavy Entertainment just because that was my last name, and it was just
Hmm.
okay, that. And then it wasn't until I went to high school I started working with Stephen Della Sala, who's our other partner. And once he got involved, we didn't call ourselves anything, but there was an incident that happened on set where there literally was a fuzz, or so we thought, on the lens, and we were recording this happening, and we're blowing in the camera, and we're cleaning it, and we can't get the fuzz off the lens. And then finally, we realized it was a smudge on the viewfinder on the opposite side. But it became this running joke for many years. Every time we filmed, it was check for the fuzz on the lens, and we would ask the actors, "Can you see the fuzz on the lens?" And they would be looking in the camera, and then it just kind of organically happened. We ended up. It was something that meant a lot to the three of us. We were all involved in it, and then we ended up naming the company Fuzz on the Lens. And everybody who was involved started calling us, the Fuzz guys or Fuzzies, and it just kind of all came together.
When I was looking at your short films, the most popular one by far is the Operation short film, which I find just a very kind of like inspired kind of take on the board game. So for anyone who hasn't seen, I really recommend you do check out the Operation short film. I'll put a link down in the show notes as well. Because to me, it kind of deals with some certain themes, certain ways that you like to do film, and the way you like to present your horror on screen. We're dealing with a clownish type figure. We're dealing with lots of gore. We're dealing with dark humor. And not only that, I think I read a quote that you did once where you said like how horror is kind of like the most adaptable genre. You can take anything really, and you can make a horror, and you can make it work if done right. And in that's like a case like what you do there. Like on the one hand, you might say to someone, "Hey, I'm going to make a short film, and it's going to be a live operation, like adaptation of the Operation board game, but it's going to be blood and guts," and people might go, "whatever." But then you do it, and it works. It works, and you can tell it works because a lot millions of people watch it so far. Um, when you are making those short films and you're diving into things like operation and such, are you feeling yourself like there's certain themes, a certain style, certain philosophies that you yourself as a filmmaker, as a producer, are really starting to tap into that's going to set the tone for some of the things with Fuzz of the Lens going in the future?
Yeah, it's funny. You don't notice it when it's happening. It's kind of
Mm,
like a retroactive, retrospect thing, that you kind of, after a while, you start thinking back on everything and you see how the pieces were all formed, because that's so true. I mean, Operation is what I guess a perfect example of kind of the stuff that we have ended up, that was done a really long time ago, and now it showcases what we're doing now. And you just hit the nail on the head. It's got humor to it. It's got the obviously clown in it. It's got the gore, you know what I mean, over the top gore. And even the certain styles that we film, it's just now it's more enhanced, it's more updated. But you could kind of see the thread line and the through line through everything that we've done. Like there were shorts that I did in high school that it wasn't until recently when I started again, you kind of do this self-reflecting to kind of see where you were, where you are, where you want to go. At least I try to do that to kind of keep growing as a creator. There were so many parallels to Stream that I didn't
mm.
notice at first, and it was like, oh my goodness! Like there was a character that was basically Jeffrey Combs, Mr. Lockwood. He had the mustache, everything, the way he was playing, and I didn't realize till going back and looking at it. Even some of the dialogue that was there was similar. And it was like that was technically the first iteration just years earlier. Um, and totally different story and nothing to do with stream, but like that's how it kind of formulated. And I think also with the short films, what was cool is there was a lot of things that we were trying out because again, they're shorts. So you can experiment as a filmmaker and you could kind of discover your voice. Another short film that we did that kind of took off was the Halloween 60 thing, which was we did a
Yes.
spoof on the Halloween 2018 trailer and we did a comedy version of it.
Hmm.
And that also shows just our style. Like even though we're making these horror movies, you look at Terrifier, it's horrific, but there's an element of comedy to it. You look at Stream, you can't help but, I guess it's just how we are. You can't help there's scenes with Danny Roebuck and Felissa Rose that you just will laugh out loud as if this is a comedy film. And I think that's important though when you're making any kind of movie. And I think that's something that I discovered at a younger age was I like the movies that have like a roller coaster of emotions. I think that if you're just constantly here at like a 10 with either jokes or scares, you're going to kind of get numb to it. So I think if you have those peaks and valleys, I think that kind of as the audience members, you have time to think, you have time to breathe, you have time to, you know, shock them in a different way. So I think that was really important for me as a filmmaker. Those are the movies that I like. So the movies that I like and want to see are the movies that I end up doing. And those are just, fun kind of movies is the only way that I can categorize it.
I'm going to move on to a game I like to play with my guests. It's called Choose Between Two. So I'm going to give you an option between two things based on like theme wise, it's very similar. You choose one and then you just talk about your choice. So you ready to play?
Ready to go.
Okay, here's a big one. First off the bat, Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers?
Tough one. And that changes every single day. Um, I'll go with Freddy Krueger. And my wife probably will hear this from downstairs and be shocked because I actually watch Halloween way more. Like I watch Halloween often, and I always refer back to it because I just think their tone and atmosphere is really cool. I like what Michael has to offer. But here's the thing with Freddy and why I picked Freddy Krueger is I think he was a game changer in the horror world. I think that he totally took what was once just these kind of stuntmen playing silent killers and very one dimensional, just stalkers and basic kills, and really opened it up into what horror can do and showcase and gave personality. And I think what Robert Englund has done as an actor, I was lucky enough to work with him on a movie called Fear Clinic, and we became friendly. And just seeing how he approaches each role is really incredible. And especially, horror sometimes gets written off by a lot of the other um, people in the industry. And I think now it's getting more respect. And that's because of people like Robert Englund who bring so much pizzazz and experience to any character, no matter if it's horror, comedy, drama, whatever. And I think Freddie really paved the way for movies like Terrifier, and Art the Clown. And I think he's one of the most unique characters. And I think also the story is just incredible. A person who haunts you in your dreams and then you actually die in real life. I mean, it's just such a unique, really in-depth story.
Halloween has been remade, redone, rejigged, all sorts of stuff. The Nightmare series outside of that remake from what, maybe 10 years ago has barely been touched. Are you kind of surprised that no one's really given another crack again? And do you think it's just a case of trying to find someone who could play the Freddy character? Are options limited? And I just want to put out there that I think David Hal Thornton would be a great Freddy Krueger if that's an
Yeah,
option in the future.
yeah. I'm shocked. I am shocked, and that I think that's part of it is that they might be trying to find someone. Maybe they don't have the exact way to go about it. It's funny. I actually have an idea, and I've been talking about this for quite some time. Maybe I don't talk about it enough because no one's called me.
Hmm.
Where I have an idea that where Nightmare on Elm Street could continue in canon with the Nightmare on Elm Streets that Robert Englund was Freddy Krueger, but pass the torch, so to speak, and still continue. You still have Freddy, you still have, everything, but Robert no longer has to play him. You just need to bring, in my idea, you do need to bring him back for one more in a passing of the torch way. But I kind of figured it out in my own head, being a fan of like, this could work and fans will accept this. And then you can go off and you can make another 20, 30 of them and still feel like it's all in the same universe. It's something I'd love to see, and I talked to Robert. Like I said, I played a younger version of Robert in a movie, the Fear Flick
Mm.
movie, and I would love to see another Nightmare. And I've talked to Robert when we were working on that film about it, and I think it will happen. It's just a matter of when, not if.
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. Next one, another two monsters going up against each other. Al Pacino or Robert De Niro?
I'm a big Robert De Niro fan. So I would choose De Niro just because I like his body of work a little more, like the films that he has chosen. However, I think there are more Pacino characters that are crazier than Robert's. That like if they were going up against each other, like specific characters, Pacino's got a lead on Robert with those because Robert kind of tends to play the same kind of role for the most part, and Pacino uh, does a lot of variations, and I think he's an incredible actor that takes any role he does to a new height. I mean, even look at the thing he did with the movie's horrible. The one with Adam Sandler, Jack and Jill.
Oh, Jack and Jill,
But he's
yeah.
the highlight of that movie. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he can take anything and make it interesting and entertaining. But as body work as a whole, I like De Niro movies.
I always lean towards Pacino, but the thing about De Niro, um, is that, and he always says, he used to say it himself, the talent is in the choices. I think he was really smart and work and who he was working with. And Pacino, I think, was kind of scattershot with the type of directors he was working with a lot of times. He did a couple with De Palma, he did a couple with Lumet, but he never went back to that well again. He kind of spread out a little bit himself too thin in regards to directors. He could have had a really good collaborator there. Lumet, I would have loved him to see him do another 3 or 4 Lumet films when Lumet was still around, but
Yeah,
never
yeah.
happened. I kind of know what the answer to this one would be, but I'm going to ask anyway. CGI or practical effects?
Obviously, you know the answer. It's practical
Yeah,
for sure. You see it in our work. First of all, it's not that I hate CGI. I think it's a very great tool, and I think that's
yeah,
the key is that it should be a tool and an aid to enhance what you shoot practically in camera. A lot of
yeah.
times now, movies will either not have, especially lower budget ones, they don't have enough of the budget to do CGI well enough. So it looks very weird and you can tell, and it pulls you out of the story. Whereas practical, it's a little more cost efficient to get right, or at least to get
Mhm.
close. And then also there's like a charm about the practical too that, it's just, you could kind of forgive even if it doesn't look as perfect than you will with CGI. But like with Terrifier, it's very practical. Stream, it's very practical. But there were CGI moments where we had to come in and take eyes and put them on the dummy, so this way that the eyes would move. You know what I mean? There's just certain things you can't do practically, that you just use that tool just a little bit to just enhance the practical. But if you go too much one way, it's going to get dated. It's going to look cheap. And I think pull you out of the film as a viewer, as an audience member, and that's the worst thing you can do because then you're no longer paying attention.
Physical media or streaming?
Definitely physical media. Uh, Here's the thing. It's funny. I made a movie called Stream, right? Uh, the thing with streaming is it's great for being lazy, for having things at your fingertips to sit on the couch and have your whole library right there. That's cool. That's, you can watch things quickly. And I see that and I get that. And I'm a culp. I use that. I do that. However, even if you own the movie, it's not really yours. You know what I mean? Because if
No.
this service goes out of service, if it goes bankrupt, if they just decide to shut it down, if there's a power outage and you have no more internet anymore, or whatever, it's gone. So like for me, it's having something tangible. I mean, this is a tape, but having something you could physically hold and own, nobody can take this away from you, whether it's DVDs, Blu-rays, steelbooks, whatever. Also, I'm a collector at heart as well, so I like
Mm.
the different iterations. And also with streaming, you don't get the bonus. So I love when you get the 4Ks, the Blu-rays, and you get the behind the scenes, and you get the making ofs and the blooper reels, and things like that that kind of expands your movie experience. Um, so I'm a big physical media guy, and I think that everyone's crazy if especially if you love a film that you don't have it, own a physical copy.
I think what's really important as well in regards to this debate is that, and it's happened a few times already, is that people who hold on to who have the licenses for these streaming stuff, like just say Disney, can go in and tamper with a movie, change dialogue, change things, and what have you. And I'm like, oh, good thing I always had that, copy of French Connection when it was
They did it with
released by
Star
20th
Wars.
Century Fox.
They did it with Star Wars. They went
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
it's like it's like I always go to it. The Halloween we talked about Halloween where there's a scene where and listen, when you're making a movie, you want it to be perfect and you want it to be this and that, right? But then at some point, if something happens, like in Halloween, John Carpenter was smoking off set, and the cigarette smoke came into the hedge scene. I always refer to that because that's kind of the charm of Halloween. That is the movie. Oh, this is when the cigarette smoke comes in off, and it makes it like this cool little thing that you can't recreate. These
Yeah.
remakes, I mean, that's what makes Halloween part of what makes Halloween special. So if they were to go in and erase that now and get rid of it, yeah, maybe you'd have more of a perfect film from the filmmaker's point of view. But now you're not Halloween. Now you're changing history. You're changing what was the charm of this movie. Like it's there. Leave it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For good, better, and different, that's the movie.
Last one. You're at the cinema. You're sitting down. What's your go-to snack? Popcorn or candy?
It's interesting. If I'm in the movie theaters, it's popcorn. If I'm
Mhm.
home, it's probably more candy or cookies or something. You
Yeah.
know, um,
When you're at home, maybe even get like, I don't know. Well, look, I had one person say hot dog, and I was like, "Who's eating a hot dog in the cinema?" I don't know, but you could do that at home. But I don't know about the cinema. But yeah, there's variations for home. That's for sure.
yeah, and we used to. We haven't done it recently since we've had the kids, but as they get a little older, we probably will. But we used to do homemade the popcorn in our house. We had the little kettle thing that pops and we put the
Hmm.
butter. So so like we did that for a while, and that's really awesome. And that gets you in the mood. But I haven't done it as much, and especially at home, but definitely in the theaters.
I want to continue on and talk about 2014. So these days we're having a the drone craze that's going on, and I don't know if you're getting any of this stuff over at Staten Island, because supposedly there were sightings there as well. Not sure if you ever seen anything in regards to that. But 10
Did the
years ago, so go ahead.
did the other night. We heard a almost like a helicopter, and my wife
Really?
said a drone. I said it's got to be. 'Cause I haven't seen them, and I looked out the window. Sure enough, I saw a drone flying over and then hovering and then waited, and then went left. And it's very low. It looked big considering the distance and stuff, but very bizarre.
Crazy. 10 years ago, though, we had the viral clown craze thanks to, the killer clown sightings around Staten Island. And it's funny when I'm looking back at the old news clips from that kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of people just like, oh, I saw it everywhere. There's a clown here, there's a clown there, what have you. What are these mysterious clowns, what have you? Comes back to Fuzz on the Lens Productions or something that you guys kind of put together. Where did the idea for this come from? I'm really curious about that because it was not only was it incredibly effective, but the press you got from it was like really great. I mean, really just shows how sometimes one thing can really just mushroom cloud into this whole kind of level of hysteria and curiosity, and before you know it, everyone's talking about it becomes viral not only in digital but also legacy media as well. You tapped into both kind of media markets there. So well, how did this all kind of killer clown kind of sightings around Staten Island come together?
A lot of drinks at Buffalo Wild Wings. No, so we were trying to at that time we were trying to do something that would in two ways that would be a social experiment for one. And it was
Hmm.
like, can we change the narrative of what is out there in the news, in the media, and change it and kind of guide how everyone is thinking or what they're talking about? And on the other hand, we were trying to build ourselves as a production company and get ourselves known, and there was that. So we had said, what can we do to put out there? And we thought it would be a slow burn over a couple of months. And then maybe we would be the ones to get the real deal footage or an interview or capture whatever we were going to do. That was the original plan. And so we started with, all right, what can we put out there that would cause a stir and kind of organically travel. And we talked about a Grim Reaper, we talked about a skeleton, all these things that like we could put out there, and we kept coming back to clowns.
Mm.
One, because I love clowns, and I guess it's always been a part of my life, even now, so more than ever. But also, I think there's such a strong opinion for clowns that people either love them and they're like, oh yeah, they're cool, or they hate them, they're scared of them,
Mm.
they loathe them, they're like petrified. So that was a no-brainer. Like it ended up being like do the clown. And what we thought was going to take 3 months ended up taking like 3 days. I didn't understand what viral meant until
Mm.
this happened. And BuzzFeed really helped pick that story up. And then this thing was everywhere. I mean, they had it in a, I have an article from one of the papers in Milan, Italy, that's like USA goes crazy over clown sighting. I mean, it's so cool. And then for a while, it was like, okay, how do we had fun with it, and it was like showing up at different spots, popping all over the place. And then it was like, all right, how do we navigate from here? Because like we were changing the narrative in the papers. We were really doing what we set out to do. But now it's just like, okay, how do you adapt and change and adjust? And then eventually we decided to say it was us and come out because there were some copycats that were happening all over the
Right.
country. And there were people chasing people with weapons, and we didn't want to go that route and be associated if somebody got hurt.
Hmm.
For us, it was more of like the creepy factor of he's holding a balloon and he's smiling, and it's like, what is this? And there was no real impending threat. So once that happened, we really decided, okay, let's reveal it's us. And at the same token, we were starting to put another movie, our first movie that I directed in our first feature film called Abnormal Attraction, that we were trying to get some funding for, and we were trying to get out there. So we ended up saying, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what was going on, and kind of give our production company, a little bit of a boost in national and worldwide global recognition. And that was really the start of a lot of it. And then from there, Terrifier ended up happening, and a lot of the documentaries that we worked on started happening, and obviously stream. And so it's funny how you can pinpoint certain moments in our career of how they broke off and helped that stepping stone to the next level.
Speaking of terrifying in entering that world, how do you kind of get introduced to that? Are you talking with the producer Ben Falcone first or are you talking with Damien Leone first? How's that all kind of happen for you?
So on the set of Abnormal Attraction, we were we built a monster village. So again, Staten Island has a lot of woods, and there's a Boy Scout camp here that has it's surrounded by trees, and it's this big open space with some cabins and huts and stuff. So we built a monster world in there in that Boy Scout camp, and we had two-story buildings and huts and witches' castles and a jail cell with vines. It was really intricate and cool. And Phil was invited to the set because he was a recently retired Wall Street guy
Mm.
that is looking to make movies and become a director producer. And our sound guy and post-production supervisor, Jason Milstein, met him at a film festival and said he's doing this movie called Joe's War with Amanda Sante, Ed Asner, and Tom Sizemore. You mind if I bring him down just to see your operation? So I said, all right. So Phil comes, we met briefly, and he was really impressed with how we were, you know, doing things. So he invited us because of that too. And he was a local, he lived in Staten Island for a little bit, from Brooklyn guy, now Jersey. So he's a Northeast guy. And he invited us to help him with his movie Joe's War. So we went there, we did a few scenes with him, met Tom Sizemore, and we just kind of hit it off,
Mm.
slowly. And it was his son that started talking about All Hallows Eve, the short Art the Clown introduction stuff. And he
Yeah.
says, have you heard of Art the Clown? I was actually embarrassed that I hadn't, because I'm a huge horror guy. And I said, I hadn't heard of this. He says, yeah, it's got a little cult following. And this is what the clown looks like. And he showed me the picture of Art. And it was the original Art, Mike Gianelli, who's playing him, not David yet, because they hadn't
Mm.
shot. And I said, wow, I said, this looks freaking awesome. I said, there's something about this clown. I said, they got the character. And I think that's the hardest part when you're making a horror movie, is to have that really good look. But even if you get lucky and get that, because there's been a few films that have, and then you totally botch the movie. And I said,
Yeah.
as long as they don't screw this up, I said, this could be something really special. And I'd love to be a part of it. And then somehow Phil and Damien, they were still casting the movie, and they knew I did some acting, and they knew we had the production company. So Damien's interested in having you guys jump on board as actors. So originally I auditioned, because Damien, you have to, even if he knows you, you got to audition.
Mm.
And so I auditioned for the cop at first at the end of the movie. And I got the part. And it was me and Steve Della Sala both got the parts of the cop. But then about a month later, he goes, "Look, I got a better role. This Will the Exterminator. But the thing is, you're going to die. You're going to have decapitated. You're going to rip your head off and all this stuff." He goes, "Would you rather that role?" I said, "Oh," I said, "this is a bigger role, first of all." I said, if you don't die in a horror movie, are you really in a horror movie?" I said,
Right.
"Absolutely." So I said, "But look, that cop role is now being vacated. Can my brother do it? He's got the same,
Mhm.
if you like what I did, he's got the same kind of abilities and acting style." I'll said he'll audition. So he did. He got the part. So all three of us now are actors, which is funny. In the first one, we did some crew stuff. Obviously, we did some sound and we did some lighting, but very minimal. And then it wasn't until the sequel was coming about where we ended up really coming on board as the production company and producers, and I was the assistant director. And then obviously we grew very close. And now we're like family, our friendship and everything. And then the rest is history. Part three and stream and beyond.
When it comes to indie horror filmmaking, I really do feel there's a big resurgence happening right now. Terrifier, of course, is a big example of this. I spoke to Stephen C. Miller a couple of weeks ago about his movie Werewolves that just came out as well. That's another recent example. Stream doing so well, like in the digital realm as well. What do you think it is about audiences that kind of more going towards the more indie horror kind of route? For myself, I always think it's kind of like a pushback towards kind of like the IP driven kind of stuff that's been kind of forced down our throats. I think people just really just looked at this stuff just like, oh man, it's just another slog, like 90-minute slog of empty pixels and even worse storytelling and stuff. Where with indie film and the do-it-yourself DIY kind of attitude and the practical effects and stuff, it's something more tangible, something more real, something more you just gets more out of it. And it's also you can feel I think something that's kind of missing from films that horror films do really well is you can feel the love on screen, which is funny because you're dealing with really macabre nature, but you're feeling the love, you're feeling the passion because the people who are making the film, you can just tell that they're fans of film as well, especially horror film. I think that kind of comes across for me anyway.
Well, and you're right, and that's what I believe as well. Is that so? These bigger studio movies, kind of when they become these cash cows, and they're just kind of pumping them out as quickly as possible. I think they lose the soul. A lot of times,
Mm,
they lose their heart. And I agree, these empty pixels things. Not to say they don't have some good stuff in them. I'll go see Halloween '95. I will. I'm a Halloween fan. But think about it. They all started out as these independent movies.
yes.
And obviously the machine kind of takes over, and then they become these big franchises, and they become very, I guess, corporatized. But I think people are going to indie films now for two reasons. One is they're taking risks that don't have the studio system or these powers that be that look at everything as analytics and like, well, if you do this, then you got to do this. And if you do this, because that takes a lot of the art of the storytelling and the creativity out of it. It just becomes
Mm,
very math numbers, very binary zeros and ones. So I think with indie, you don't have that over you. So that can help open up a lot of doors and a lot of creativity. Also creativity because you're very limited in your budget, so you have to get creative. You don't just have money to
yeah.
throw at it. There were so many things with Terrifier and Stream that originally we had written to do, right? And then you can't do it, but you end up figuring out a way to do it, and it ends up being better because now you're forced to get creative with it. And as opposed to if you have these millions of dollars, you can say, ah, well, here it is, and it's
Hmm.
done. So that's part of it too. And then also it's just the indie people are just trying so hard to get into the business that they're creating these great relationships, they're creating these great teams, and they're just so passionate about their work that they want to make something that is cool and fun and creative. You know what I mean? Whereas these people, I think that once they're kind of established and set, not all of them, but some of them might just get content. And
Mm,
that's the problem. You know what I mean? You can't be content, not in this industry, because then you're done. What's the point? So for us, we're fans first and foremost. So we're making movies that we want to see. We're making movies for fans. Are you always gonna everything you do gonna be a hit, 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 hit? No, but as long as you're truthful in what you're doing and you're passionate about it, you're creative about it, and you're honest in what you're doing, that's the fans see that, the audience sees that, and they're gonna come along for the journey with you.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. The thing I love about horror, and especially indie horror films, is that there is a reverence for the horror films of the past, the figures of the past as well. Stream is a good example of this as well. I mean, you talked about Jeffrey Combs, you had the late great Tony Todd, Tim Curry was in there. A lot of filmmakers, especially indie horror filmmakers, they want to bring on to the set, and want to bring on to the films the filmmakers, the actors, the personalities that kind of like helped shape their kind of like cinematic kind of worldview. In a certain way, it kind of reminds me and I might be off path here because I'm a wrestling fan, like a pro wrestling fan. It kind of reminds me of pro wrestling sort of way. Like a lot of these pro wrestling places where it can be WWE all the way down to the indie stuff. They always have space for like the older guys that did it before them, and
Yep.
bring them back and have a spot for them. And it seems like in the indie horror world you have that too. Like I said before, Stream definitely did that and tapped into that. Do you think there's a thing about the essence of community being something that's very strong in horror filmmaking, and that has an effect on audience? Because one of the biggest crowds that I was in this year was the Sydney premiere for Terrifier 3, packed cinema. I want like a big cinema. I'm not talking about small indie thing, like a multiplex cinema filled with people, dressed up Art the Clown, from different walks of life, I'm sure, but a collective love for this one thing. And you feel it on the screen, you feel it off the screen. It's definitely community driven, I think, anyway, more than any other film genre.
It is. And the horror community is the best community out there. I'm proud to be a part of it. And they care. The horror fans really care. Very opinionated. Which is also funny too, because I've never seen such opinionated fans. You know why? Because they care, because they're invested,
Mm.
because I think they're the greatest fans in the world. And horror, look at it. Horror is one of the only movies genres now that you can put out in the theaters and you'll pack the theaters out because you'll get this great experience, and seeing it with your community and seeing it with the fan base just makes it that much more exciting, makes it that much more of an event when you go see the movies. And I truly believe that. And yeah, a lot of the movies, for me, there's so many people that inspired me growing up in the horror world. Like, we got them a part of streaming, and that's so awesome. And that's something I wanted to always see as a filmmaker, and be like, oh, you got Tony Todd and Jeffrey Combs and Danielle in this movie. And, for us, it was just a matter of, and we just set out to do that, by the way. We didn't set out originally to say, let's just throw in as many people as we can. We started with
Mm.
the story. And then it just so happened, being a horror fan, you just says, oh, Felissa Rose would be cool for this, and this one would be cool for that, because their personalities fit these roles. And then luckily they liked the idea, the concept. They really liked the story, and they liked the script, and they said, all right, we're going to do it. And it ended up growing that way. But it ended up being a really cool thing that happened, because as a horror fan, I was getting excited, saying, oh man, this is a movie I would want to see. And this is something that I think is cool. And, hopefully we can get a franchise out of it, and start something else up like we did with Terrifier. So it was nice to kind of pay tribute to those people that inspired me to become a filmmaker, and to include them. And, that's why I love the nods with Stream. I don't know, how many times you've seen it, or if you've picked up on some of it, but there's little nods in it. And it's got a lot of rewatch value, where like real horror fans will hopefully appreciate. Like Danielle Harris, I'll just give you one, plays Jamie Lloyd in the Halloween franchise, which is Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, right? And in the original Halloween, 1978, Jamie Lee Curtis is sitting by the couch. Michael Myers comes up over the back. She grabs the sewing needle and stabs him, punctures the mask into Michael Myers' neck.
Mm.
We did a similar scene in Stream, where Danielle Harris finds a pen and goes behind the thing and goes to puncture the killer, but our masks are carbon fiber. So it's that
Right.
modern, it bounces off. And it was just that little moment of like, this is cool, because it's Danielle Harris who played Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter. And now she's doing the same thing, but in a modern movie. And it was just like those little nods, that we did throughout the movie. There's some stuff we did with Tim, and there's some stuff we did with Mark Holton, because I'm a huge Leprechaun fan. And it was just one of those things where we wanted, horror fans to just have fun and just like say, oh, that was cool. And like, just feel that nostalgia again, but also get a new modern kind of tale.
I want to move on to a different game now. It's called a rapid fire questions. I'm going to throw some questions to you. Try to answer as quick as you can and feel free to abbreviate afterwards. Are you ready to rock?
Ready to go.
Favorite horror movie kill?
Ooh, I guess rapid fire is real bad for me right now. There's so many. My favorite horror movie kill. I love Nightmare on Elm Street, the pickup and the TV into the
Oh, from
Welcome to
number three. Yeah,
Time.
welcome to
Yeah,
primetime, bitch. Yeah,
just because
yeah,
of
yeah.
the perfect line and the execution of it, I think that's a real. And it's memorable as hell. I think that's a really cool kill.
That's a really good one. What do you think is the best New York set horror movie?
Best New York set horror movie.
Hmm.
Huh.
It's a tricky one because when you think horror movies, you think more kind of like suburbia,
Suburbia.
maybe, yeah, kind of thing. But like New York kind of set, I like. I
I'll
struggle
give
with
you
it
the
too, but
worst
there's a few
one.
that,
Jason Takes Manhattan. I don't like that
right.
because it's more like Jason takes a boat. Yeah, that's interesting. Scream, the new Scream. I thought that was great. I thought
Oh,
that
right, right.
Scream, the new Scream in set in New York. I was very skeptical of it. I thought that was done really well.
That's a good one. I like that one. I know you're a Joe Pesci fan. What's your favorite Joe Pesci movie?
My cousin Vinny,
Nice. I like
definitely,
that.
definitely. If it's not that, then it would go to. I love my cousin Vinny. I love Home Alone. Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag is another cool one. But yeah, definitely my cousin. Gone Fishing is a cool one. There's so many of his. Yeah.
I recently talked to Jack Houston. He's got a movie out called Day of the Fight, his directorial debut. Joe Pesci's a producer on it, and he's also in the film as well. Um,
Out yet?
and it came out in cinemas. Yes, Day of the Fight. Really recommend you watch it. It's really great.
How the hell do you get Joe? That's
Um,
great.
do you know he's a singer, Joe Pesci?
I did. I did. I knew that. Yeah.
His music is in the film because there's this beautiful scene where Joe Pesci's character has Alzheimer's. And his son is played by Michael Pitt, and he's trying to talk. They're trying to talk to each other. They can't. And so Michael Pitt puts on his father's music because the his father, Joe Pesci's character in the movie, was a singer, and he puts on one of Joe's actual songs on like
That's
vinyl and plays.
oh, I
And I was
gotta
like,
watch.
oh my God, this is crazy. It's like I never knew Joe Pesci was a singer. And then I looked up all different songs. He's got a song about Mr. Gambini called
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Gambini or something.
That's a great one. His best song,
Yeah.
I think, is the Christmas one. Have you heard his Christmas song?
No, no, no.
You gotta listen, Joe Pesci Christmas song. It is really funny. It's a great one. It's my favorite one. Yeah, check it out.
Oh, okay. I definitely have to. Um, okay, so this one I get a lot of diverse opinions on. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I've never had it. I don't think I'd like it. Maybe I would. To me, it's weird. But I'm not opposed to it because I think, pizza is one of those fun foods that you can just try any topping. Maybe not whipped cream, but yeah, why not? Not my thing, but sure, if you like it, go right ahead.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay, last one. And again, kind of no, okay, I'm not going to say this is divided. I'm lying here because I'm in a negative on this one, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Die Hard. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes. I said no for many years. I said no for many years, and I just recently changed my opinion on it. I think for many years, this is what I would say. I said Die Hard is a movie that just so happens to be set on Christmas, was always my theory on it. But now I think that so many people are saying that it's a Christmas movie and actually are putting it into their watching of Christmas films. And there's actually more Christmas in it than you would think. I would say if it is a Christmas movie, which I'm saying yes now, then so is Lethal Weapon. So,
Oh,
because
yeah. I say that all the time. So I'm always a nay on a Die Hard as a Christmas movie, and then I follow up with that Lethal Weapon must be a Christmas movie.
right. So that's my thing is I'll
Yeah.
say yes because I
Mm.
never did. I'll say yes because I will then follow up and say, and then so is Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, 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 it has to be because Lethal. I'd actually argue that Lethal Weapon, that Die Hard actually took a lot of cues from Lethal Weapon in
Oh
regards
yeah.
to the Christmas stuff because the Lethal Weapon starts off with a Christmas song. I forgot which song it is when the girl jumps off the building. That's a Christmas song playing in the background, and at the end of the movie, Mel Gibson and Gary Busey having a jiu-jitsu fight in the front lawn, and surrounding them is like Christmas lights and everything. It's yeah. So if you're going for one, you have to go with the other 100%.
And that's my point.
I want to talk about Stream. So this is a latest film that you have. So if everyone out there, it's available now on digital. You can go check it out, and I'll put links as well down to places you can check it out and Stream website and what have you. When I was watching the film, there's something that's really interesting that I came across with me is that technology, the changing nature of technology, especially, there's always been a fear of it in a certain way. And I think the thing about Stream that kind of really taps into is kind of like that dark web kind of whole kind of thing, right? And it's kind of interesting as well because I was had a when I was watching Stream, I was watching another movie that was being released here in Australia next year, and it has to do with stuff films. And I was looking up the history. Like it's never ever proven to be existed. It's like an urban legend kind of thing, but just the notion of it is enough to kind of scare people, right? That some dark corridor somewhere, say back in 1980s New York, someone's watching like this stuff in some wherever. And these days, that kind of thing is the dark web. People watch all sorts of gnarly crap in there and what have you. Stream kind of taps into that stuff as well. Do you think we're always going to have that fear of technology? These days, AI is the big fear of technology. Drones, we're just talking about that not long ago. There's a fear of that kind of stuff as well. Stream really taps into that kind of thing where no matter the perversities of a person or a sect of people, there's going to be an outlet for that somewhere online. We're not going to see it. Not a lot of people are going to see it, but they know where it is. And the fact that it is online somewhere is enough to send chills down your spine because it's kind of like that one house in your neighborhood. You don't know who lives there, the stories that comes from it. You know never to walk past it when you're a kid, but you know it's always there, right? And so I'm just curious of whether Stream for you, when you tackled it, had to do with the fear of technology and what it can provide.
So that's really the start of it, and that's where it all built off of. And just a preference before, we kind of built Stream out to be a hopeful franchise. So we wanted to do the first movie, touch upon some of these ideas, and then really expand upon them if we're lucky enough to get sequels to really dive into a lot of what you're talking about. We wanted to make the first one a slasher at heart, and then kind of just show at the surface of like, wow, there's some really deep things that can be going on here, and then tackle it. So yes, at the start of it, technology was the biggest thing because there's so many unknowns with technology.
Hmm.
That as great as it is, in the wrong hands, it could be detrimental to families, to anyone. There's so much. Like right now, we're doing this Zoom, and people are going to watch it and stuff, and we're expecting that. That's great. But what happens when you stop hitting record and somebody else we're talking, and somebody else can see something, or our cameras are off and they're watching? There's
Hmm.
so much of this voyeuristic things
Yeah.
that could be going on, in the digital age, whereas, Rear Window used to be just the guy in the binoculars looking out the window. But now they could be in your home and you don't even know
Yeah.
it. Is my Alexa listening to me? Is my phone? The phones are listening. And that's scary as hell because how many times do we talk and then all of
Yes.
a sudden there it is, an ad for it? That is wild.
Fuck
Wild
yes, that happens to me all the time.
all the time. So these are things that we do, themes that we do want to touch upon even further. But it started with that, and the reason why technology was being a fan of the '80s, being a fan of slasher films. I think the best slasher movies that stayed around were movies that touched upon cultural experiences and things and people's safe spaces and exploiting them. Halloween, 1978. You have The Neighborhood, The Babysitters, exploited. Nightmare on Elm Street, you're in your bed, you're sleeping, exploited. Psycho, The Shower. Nightmare, Jaws, The Day at the Beach. You go to the beach, everybody goes to the beach, everyone can relate, exploited. The Summer Camp Crystal Lake, Friday the 13th, exploited. So there were all of these safe spaces that were like, okay, we all can relate to this, we all can connect to this, and then it was like, and we all love it and we do it, but there's these unknowns about it, and then they force those unknowns to the forefront and put it on display. With Stream, what is going on now that everybody can relate to? We do feel safe because we all have phones, we all utilize it. But there is this unknown. Is the government listening to me? Is someone watching me? What's going on? Are they going to take this and throw this in this dark web where people can now watch and view and kind of like enter what I thought was my safe space and exploit that? So, there's so many things that are going on in the modern world that haven't been tapped into in the slasher genre because when the slashers were king, it was the 80s and that didn't exist. So we were kind of saying, how do we take a pure slasher movie and modernize it? And that was
Mm.
really where we kept coming back to with Stream. And there's just so much we can go with it. I think the concept is actually greater than the story, you know what I mean? Greater than the film itself, because it's something that can go in so many different directions, and showcase so many horrors that come out of it.
The end of stream, I don't want to give away too much, but it kind of nods his head to this is like a global thing, because the internet is global, right? Is the hope in the future for like sequels and such is perhaps maybe, I don't know, could have stream Australia, stream Japan, or what have you, and maybe tapping into the local talent in those places or filmmakers, what have you, and like bring their own kind of spin to the stream thing. Like you could do it like, for example, me in Australia, you can do like a stream Australia, and you can have kind of like a Wolf Creek style kind of killer, that's part of this collective of murderers and such. Is that kind of like the hope? Or are you trying to keep it more kind of
No,
like where you are in the US?
no, it is. It is, because that's the thing, is the internet is not contained to either one state or one country or, just the US or whatever. That is the plan. And that was, without giving too much away, that was what we were going for, to say, oh, this is bigger than this self-contained lunatic that is
Mm,
just doing this in this one isolated spot. And I think that's what's cool about it too, is that with Stream, you can do it, but you don't need to follow the Keenans for 10 movies. There's
yeah,
all different locations, there's all different characters, there's all different games, there's all different Lockwoods that are running this. It's the organization, it's the concept, it's the idea. Yeah, we wanted to create, this kind of cool killer mask look to
yeah,
kind of say, oh, well, that's Stream. But it's bigger than that. It's
yeah.
the it's the game. It's what's going on that can live forever. And then that's where you don't have to have Michael Myers, coming back in the most weirdest, bizarre, jumping the shark kind of way, because it's bigger than just the one player. So there's so much there that we want to tap into. We have some great ideas for a sequel that we're hoping to be able to do if we get lucky enough. But it starts with, and it's happening, more fans getting exposed to it. The more people that are seeing it, they're responding to it greatly. They're loving what we're doing. They see what we're going for. And just like with Terrifier, you saw Terrifier 1 to what we did to 2. We're hoping to do that same jump, but go to like what we're doing with Terrifier 3. And that comes with, more people watching it, more people reviewing it, more people sharing it. We got a great Rotten Tomatoes. The critics, they're talking about it. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it. They're loving it. They're talking, which is great. They get what we're doing. So we need more of that and more exposure to raise awareness, and then hopefully we'll be able to do a sequel sooner than later.
Well, I'm really hoping that this interview helps with that as well, because as you know, I'm a big advocate for indie filmmakers, especially indie horror filmmakers. And for everyone out there who hasn't seen Stream, I'm going to have links for that as well, to like, Prime Video or where would you recommend people will want to watch Stream if you would? Like, what's the first place
Well,
if you ask
the
me to go?
best place that I found out is the most filmmaker friendly is if you go to either Fandango It Now, which is Vudu,
Mm-hmm.
Apple TV, or iTunes. Those three give a better split to the actual filmmaker, we found out.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, it's also on Amazon, which most people have Amazon. So if that's the only place you can watch it, great. Watch it on Amazon, because as long as you're watching it, if you can buy it, great. If you can only rent it, that's fine. But they're the least percentage that goes to the filmmaker because they're Amazon and they can do that, right?
Right.
But those are the places I would recommend first. But if you can't, Amazon's fine. We're also coming to very soon. We're coming to Google. What is that? Google Play, and
Right.
also I guess YouTube as well. The VHS we're doing a collector's edition VHS
Nice.
that are really awesome. We got blue tapes. We got really sick vintage poster art, cover art for
Mm-hmm.
it. So those are available that you can see from Whitner Entertainment and Bro Horror fans. They'll be the same ones that did the Terrifier. And then we'll do the 4Ks and the steel books and the Blu-rays and the DVDs eventually. But yeah, it starts with check it out. If you're a horror fan, I believe you will really enjoy it and like it. We poured a lot into it. And again, the sky's the limit where this can go if we get lucky enough to do it.
And again, I recommend everyone check out Stream. I'll have all the links in production show notes, and support indie filmmakers, support indie horror filmmakers, especially because it's really important that indie filmmakers are really supported out there. The films are watched and talked about, and yeah, I can't wait to see where the world of stream takes you, Michael. And yeah, it's been so fantastic to talk to you. I know, just share a little off screen. You and I be trying to get this online going for like a few weeks now. We finally got it down. It's going to be available for the Saturday conversation for everyone to listen. And yeah, I just got to say thank you so very much for your time today, and for and for just all the hard work you put into all these years. And if I find out in a week from now that you're behind the drone thing as well, kind of like how you did the Killer Clowns, and I'm just going to stand up and applaud you,
Extreme
sir.
marketing.
it's
Lockwood,
it's
yeah.
it's stream drone wars or stuff like that. That's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And that's funny. Listen, all great things take a little bit of time. So we finally got the interview to do this, and I'm happy that this finally happened. You're a great dude, and I appreciate your support. It means the world. And yeah, hopefully we can do it again with the next project.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.